Hey guys, it's Jeremy here on Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What do you have for today, guys, is the next installment of my top 5 for each year. So if you're new to the channel, what I've been doing is a series of my top 5 albums from each year, hard rock and metal, starting in 1970, where metal kind of began, and working my way through each year all the way till 2021. And it's been an interesting exercise. I love doing these videos. It kind of forces me to go back and remember what came out those years and kind of revisit those albums and listen to them. And like I said, every year that goes by, it becomes harder and harder to narrow it down to a top 5. I should have really done a top 10, but I'll stick to the format and leave it at 5 and just give my honorable mentions at the end before I do my number 1. So let's jump right in, guys. At number 5, I put Rush's 2112. I'll put the album art up here. Great album. One of my favorite Canadian bands of all time for sure. Probably my favorite progressive hard rock band. The musicianship with these three guys is incredible. The sound they produce, and lyrics are really good. Composition's really good. This is just an iconic record. It's just a really good record. I had to put it on the list. Number 5 was the hardest spot for me because there was about 3 or 4 other albums who were kind of duking it out with this one, which I'll mention near the end. But I decided to put Rush in here. I think they're very deserving of the spot. At number 4, I have Judas Priest, Side Wings of Destiny. Love me some Priest. This is their first album where I think they really found their sound, and they kind of had that kind of stripped down, balls to the walls kind of metal sound that they would kind of continue on from here. A great album. So many great tracks on this album. If you're not into early Priest, this would be a good entryway. The debut album is really good too, but has a different sound to it. Like I said, they didn't quite find their sound yet. But on this album, like, Victim of Changes is fucking amazing. I think that's one of my favorite Priest songs. Dreamer Deceiver was a single off that too. Prelude is good. The Ripper was really good. Just the whole album is really solid. So definitely deserving of the spot in the top 5. And going back for number 3. Number 3, I had Kiss's Destroyer. This is, in my opinion, the quintessential Kiss record. It's the album I go to when I want to listen to Kiss. It has so many great tracks, some of their most iconic songs they've ever written, so, like Detroit Rock City. The ballad Beth was the breakthrough song for them. Shed It Out Loud. God of Thunder, of course, and Do You Love Me was a really good song too. Top to bottom, it's like a greatest hits song for Kiss. Greatest hits album, I should say. I love this record. I'm not the biggest Kiss fan compared to some people, but I love putting it on from time to time when I just want to listen to some good rock and fun music, kind of party anthems. And yeah, it's fun to listen to. Great album cover as well. Definitely probably my favorite Kiss album of all time. Up there with probably Love Gun, or I don't know. Kiss Alive is probably the other for a live album. Kiss Alive is epic too. But definitely a really good album. And at number 2, I have the Boston debut. I had to put this in here. Like I said, as soon as I thought of this year, it was one album that really stood out to me. Incredible album for a debut. Arguably the best hard rock debut of all time. Iconic artwork, very distinguishable. The sound they produced on this album was ahead of its time. No other album sounded like it in 1976. Even to this day, I haven't listened to a record that has this sound to it. They recorded this in a basement, if you can believe it, with very minimal gear, and they just produced it so well. It's an amazing album to front to end. It's the greatest hits all the way through. Every song is iconic and just amazing. There's no weak tracks on this album. Obviously, it has More Than a Feeling was the big song that everyone knows. Peace of Mind is one of my favorite Boston songs of all time. Rock and Roll Band, Smokin's on there, Hitchin' a Ride. Just top to bottom, just a greatest hits album. It's really all you need from Boston, in my opinion. It's their highest selling album of all time. I think it sold like 37 million copies. Some crazy amount, but it's huge. Iconic album. And before I get to my number 1, I just want to go through some honorable mentions. Like I said, there was 3 or 4 records that were kind of duking it out with Rush at the bottom. Then it didn't quite make the list. The most notable one was Queen's Day of the Races. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I'm a massive Queen fan. I love their 70s stuff. And I so badly wanted to put Day of the Races on this list because I love the album. But I wanted to give some love to some other bands. And Queen's been kind of dominating my list. And I think the other albums on my top 5 were just a little bit better. Kiss also had Rock and Roll Over that year as well. They put out 2 albums. It's pretty crazy when bands used to put out like 2 albums within 1 year that are so great. Bands take like 10 years to put out albums now. It's so annoying. Ted Nugent had Free For All was a good one. Thin Lizzy had Johnny the Fox and Jailbreak, some huge albums from them too. AC/DC had Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, which is a great album. Alice Cooper had Cooper Goes to Hell. Blue Oyster Cult's Agents of Fortune is a huge one. And the other one that barely made but didn't make my list was Aerosmith Rocks, which is one of Aerosmith's best records too, really good. Led Zeppelin had Presence that year. I'm not a big fan of that record, but worth noting. And what else? Black Sabbath had Technical Ecstasy. It's a decent album. I'm not the biggest fan of that album, but it's not bad. UFO had No Heavy Petting, which was decent. I think that's pretty much it that I can think of that I was kind of looking at. Thin Lizzy had the 2 albums. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But my number 1, guys, had to be, hands down, Rainbow's Rising record. It's arguably my favorite heavy metal record of all time. It's a perfect record. There's only 6 tracks. But with the lineup in that band, you could not put out a masterpiece. When you have like Cozy Powell on the drums, Jimmy Bain, Roddy James Dio on vocals, and Richie Blackmore on guitar, it's impossible not to make an iconic record. The track listing is, like I said, flawless top to bottom. Terror Woman, Run to the Wolf, Starstruck, Do You Close Your Eyes, Stargazer, Light in the Black. Stargazer is arguably my favorite metal song of all time. It's so epic. And I think this is Roddy James Dio's best vocal performance of his entire career, in my opinion. It's unmatched and anything else I've heard him do, even with the Sabbath stuff, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules and Dehumanizer. In my opinion, this is his best vocal performance ever. I just love this record. I listen to it every week for sure. And it's iconic. It's probably, like I said, arguably my favorite metal record of all time. So yeah, that's pretty much my list, guys. Let me know down below what your top 5 would be for 1976. And if you enjoyed the content, again, please give the video a thumbs up. And stay tuned for 1977. Keep it metal.